We'll turn in. We'll get started in just a sec. We're going to use a little time in the beginning since we have a smaller set of folks presenting today to get all of that stuff going. All right, so welcome. This is our last full week of the quarter, and today is the first day for folks sharing their small group observation presentation. There are a couple of folks who, due to extenuating circumstances, needed to shuffle around a little bit. So our number of presentations for today is pretty small. We just have 4 folks presenting. So I want to use some time at the beginning of class, just give you some information, things to know, and a little bit of an opportunity to prepare for people that are hearing us present today. So just to give you a quick glance, remember that we'll have presentations today, Wednesday, and Friday. The week 9 quiz, the final quiz is due on the 19th. I've extended that due date out for you. Also, the extra credit, which is posted, adds 24% is also due by the end of the day on the 19th. Just as a reminder, if you have any remaining makeup assignments or anything else, I need that by the 19th so that I can enter in grades and get all of that stuff finalized for you. So just know that that's coming up. And folks that use the Get Out of Jail Free card can turn in this small group observation essay by Sunday. So I have 4 folks that are here and able to present for today. So we'll go in order in just a moment. I do want to kind of give you some expectations and things to know if you're in the audience or if you're presenting. So for those of you that are presenting today, I will keep time signals. What I will do is raise my hand with the number 2, victory sign for 2 minutes remaining. That means you have used 4 minutes and then you have 2 minutes left. If I raise 1 finger, then that means you have 1 minute remaining. And I'll then do a fist to indicate that you are at time. Once you've reached time, then I'll just ask you to wrap up the current thought or idea that you're working on so that we can keep moving along. I ask that if you're not presenting today, just to listen respectfully. You can take notes if you need to use a device to do so, but I discourage you kind of using your phone or something else that's designed for other purposes, right? And then I have pulled up the slides and visual aids that I've received so far. I have 2 of them, and I'll get the others pulled up in just a minute. If you are not presenting today, what I would like you to do for your attendance credit for today is to choose 2 of the presentations. And what I'd like you to do is just to observe, what was that group that the presenting student talked about? What stood out to you about their presentation? And how did those observations connect to the course? I've got these slides available and linked on Canvas too if you need to access that. But again, just for attendance, if you're not presenting, I'd just like you to take some notes about what you're noticing in the presentations and some of the observations that people have. If you are presenting today, you don't need to do that. Just so long as you've done your presentation and you're here, I'm not going to ask you to write that up since that is your presentation day. So other folks, that will count as your attendance. So what I want to do now is you should have received an email about a week ago. It should come out on the 27th or 28th regarding the course evaluations, right? So I take this super seriously. I like to know what's going well, what can be done to improve this and other courses. So what I want to do is give you about 10 minutes or so, if you have not already done so, to complete those evaluations using your device or phone. I will step out because I think it's a little awkward for you to work on that while I'm in the room. So I'll give you some time to work on that. I'll return in about 10 minutes. And then for those of you that are presenting today, you can also use that 10-minute time to prepare and finish anything else that you need to do ahead of your presentation, emails, or make sure that your visual aids are good to go, so on. So it is about 9:04, so at about 9:14, I will be back, and you should complete those evaluations on Canvas, this, and then your other courses. If you haven't already done so, take some time to prepare your presenting, and I will be back in just a second. still need to finish up? Okay, great. Looks like a couple other presentations were submitted. I believe I saw yours, Clint, so I will go ahead and pull those up.
That's a good looking slide right there. Is it 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes?
Yeah, 5 to 6 minutes. I'll let you know when you're approaching that. Get the screen shared.
Is it okay if I use my phone for some?
Yeah. And that keyboard, you're welcome to use the click or the arrow keys as you're working that. Yeah, so you get the little keyboard up there. All right. All right. So, Clint, thank you for being our first presenter for small group communication. I'm excited to hear your work and see what all went on. So, whenever you're ready, we'll go ahead and have it get started.
All right. So this is about the Ag Entrepreneurship Club here at EOU. Oh, shoot. There we go. So the setup of meeting was pretty similar to most meetings that I've seen. They had an agenda laid out on a whiteboard, which is kind of nice because when you walk into a lot of meetings, all the officers or whoever's leading the club tend to just kind of have it to themselves and lay it out. It's kind of nice to come in, see what topics they had laid out. This may be if they're going to ask if you have any ideas, you have time to think about them possibly. They had things like social media posted up there, just what kind of stuff they can do to reach out to the other students in the school to kind of gain some popularity, get some more people coming in. Talked about having guest speakers come in, come talk about things, people like salesmen for different ag-related things. Also recruiting, how to get more members in the club, since we went in, there was only 6 members that were there. Also a logo for the club and promotional items. Meeting started at 6 p.m. Did give a little bit of time for a few people to kind of wander their way into the meeting. So in terms of leadership, one thing that I thought was pretty interesting is that they had 2 presidents. Never really see that. You usually see one president with people that have different titles, I guess, below them that also take a leadership role. I think it worked out pretty well. I didn't know how it was going to work when I first went in. I was like, well, this is interesting. I don't know how well it works with 2 people in charge, but it seemed to work pretty well. They seemed to do a pretty good job of bouncing back and forth with ideas and the topics. They had their secretary there, just taking notes and stuff, and treasurer, but I don't think the treasurer was too busy because not a lot of money was being moved around. Overall, the roles in this club were fairly obvious. You have the 2 presidents in charge, and their secretary. Notes. So the atmosphere in there was pretty cool. Everyone was super welcoming, made it very comfortable to come in and sit in on the meeting. Wasn't kind of like a sit in the back corner kind of thing and just kind of sit there by yourself. There were 6 members present. It wasn't too many where it felt overcrowded. It still felt nice to kind of, like I said, comfortable to sit up with people. And like I said, hear enough for ideas to flow very well within the group. So not people, there's few enough people where ideas can flow fairly well. Presidents took turns speaking about it, worked well together. They were very welcoming to hearing different ideas, which we've been talking about in the group. It is very important to finding solutions to possible problems or finding different ways to come about things. It's very nice. They were very organized. Like I said, I came in, the agenda was all written out on the whiteboard, which was awesome. They were straight to the point, so we got through everything. It flowed very nicely. Got caught up a couple times, but it wasn't anything too bad. And overall, I think it was a pretty well put together group. They're pretty new as of this year. There's a lot of things to learn off that and a lot of room to grow. As they were talking about trying to get ways for the club to grow, and that's something a new club should definitely be looking for. Roles were obvious. Like I said, I have yet to see any other clubs that I've been to that have 2 presidents instead of kind of a pyramid going down of who's in charge. And also very comfortable setting, which I think is awesome. We talked about that a lot in here, about how when you go into a club, having it comfortable makes it easier for people to talk and give their ideas. So, and that is my presentation.
Great work, Brent. I'm curious, do you happen to know why they ended up having presidents?
I don't. It kind of, because in the club that I'm one of the officers, and we have like a whole bunch of flow, and they've got the 3 people or 4 people, including 2 presidents.
Sure.
It might bounce off well if both didn't play a super full-on leadership role, and maybe they complement each other very well and being able to make like good president or whatever.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting too, meeting time, right? 6 p.m. Could be a good time for some people, but a lot of folks, they're coming home, they're maybe not ready to go back into a meeting.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting.
It's almost dinner time too.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like the way that you kind of explained the sort of agenda structure, this kind of unique thing with presidents. I really liked as well the points that you talked about with regard to atmosphere, the overall structure of the meeting, right? I think that as we're watching these presentations, it's exciting to see how some of these new groups decide for themselves, the ways that they use things like agenda and putting together some of their expectations for communication. So really great way to get us started. I really appreciate the findings that you had from your participation in that group. Awesome. Yeah. So now that we've got that, we need to have us go down the line and get our next presentation going. It looks like we have Jacob up next, so I will.
Misspelled observation. Yes.
I would not notice that you didn't say it.
Didn't even right click it, change it. We're starting out strong.
All right. So, yeah, welcome to you. Let me just check that. Perfect.
Sweet. I'm gonna do this. I like to pace around. I'm just gonna hold it like a baby.
Same.
As you can see, my name is Jacob Gauss, my small group, Officer Pigeon. I observed the EOU Fiddle Ensemble, which is the smallest musical group we have here. I'm pretty sure it has it up there somewhere. He asked in the rubric, he said, what time, what place did it take place? So I literally said the exact 5 p.m. on Wednesday, 3/2/2022 in Lisbon Hall 123. I said the exact time, place. It was a week before their concert. not exactly a week, but their concert was last Friday. Did anyone go? Nice. Thank you for attending. I was there too. It was in person. There were 6 members. There was 2 guitar players and 4 violin players. I selected this meeting because I am a music man. So it would make sense for me to pick a musical group that I'm not a part of, which there is one, and it is this one. And it helped me pay more attention to the group because it was actually something I was interested in. What happened? So since it was before their concert, it was a lot of rehearsing. They basically just ran through a bunch of their songs, but just kind of touching them up, making sure everything was running as smoothly as possible for the concert. And they also discussed in the meeting who was going to be in the ensemble next year, if they were going to have any new members, and if anyone had any ideas for any songs that they would like to play. The meeting followed the structure. It's a structure I'm fairly familiar with, being a music person. It's kind of do everything you need to, and then cover everything else. So they just started with all their songs. They played through them. They fixed any bad things that were going on with the songs. And then they talked about other things at the end of the rehearsal. And they went through their songs in the order they were going to play them in the concert, just so that everything was standardized and everything was easy. Leadership. The fiddle ensemble has, I put in quotes, 2 professors, because I don't know if both of them have the official title of professors. They have 2 educators, people smarter than other people. One who plays guitar, which if any of you have taken guitar classes, has anybody taken guitar classes? Have you?
Yes, yes, I have.
Yes, he's one of the guitar guys, and one who mainly plays violin. I put that the leadership in the class is functional leadership, because they're working towards a specific task, which is performing, and that's basically our task. Make music and then perform music for you guys to like it. Or don't like it. Their organization within the group, there's really only 2 areas that can be organized within a musical group, and it is the order of the music and who's playing what part or singing what part. I mean, there's like organization, like I guess you could organize what section people are in, but with this small of a group, it really didn't matter where you were sitting. So the only organization fell between what order of music you were playing and what part you were playing. What I learned from this group, I learned how different music groups operate. I've been in several music groups over the span of my lifetime, but never a fiddle ensemble. I'm not a string player, so I don't know why I would be a fiddle ensemble. So it was pretty fun. I connected it to the overall theme of the class in a way. I think that's that. The director handled most of the large decisions and kept the group running smoothly. And I think that is it.
Thanks, Jacob. So one thing that I think was really interesting you mentioned was just how small the fiddle ensemble is, right? You said it's 6 people. Would that be including like the 2 like educator folks?
Yeah.
Yeah. So very, very small group, and I would imagine it probably felt pretty tight knit, right?
Yeah.
People really knew each other well. That's interesting, right? I really like the way that you were kind of comparing it to some of the other music groups and organizations on campus that you're part of, right? And kind of contrasting that with this one. Its size, the sort of way that you have these educator folks in the group, the kind of roles that are being put on in there, right? I think one of the things we've been hitting on with this class is the way that group size really impacts the dynamics, cohesion, responsibility of the group. And I thought you put off some things really well there. So I really liked, the way that you were using some of the group structure and identifying those roles well. So great work in getting us thinking about engaging like some of the dynamics of small group communication. So thanks for doing it. All right, so we have 2 more folks that are here for today. So we'll just keep going down the list. So let me go ahead and pull up the next one. Okay. So next up, we've got Eli, and I think I've got yours. Yes. Click for hearing whenever you're ready. And you're good. Feel free to get us started.
All right, hello, I'm Eli, and this is my group membership observation. The group I chose was the Resident Hall Association, RHA. Their meetings are Mondays from 7 to 8 p.m., which is quite late, but I asked them about it, and they're like, this is the only time that works in their schedule, because there's about 8 members with a bunch of different schedules, so meeting at night is more easy than during the day class times. About 8 members in the group, plus whoever wants to show up. Their goal is to improve quality of life of residents within all 4 halls allocated to USC North and Doherty. They also throw events for the residents. How this group meets, they meet face to face whenever possible. They will do Zoom if like people are sick or if not enough people can make the meeting. So Zoom is always a possibility, but they try to face to face whenever possible. All the group members are supposed to show up, all the officers, and they have other members that just show up just to give insights and better represent the student body. And then if someone passes by the meeting, they love to ask their input on whatever they're talking, because that's their job to understand what the residents want of the halls. I chose this group because I knew a few people in it, so it's easier to be a part of it. And then it's also nice to see who is responsible for what's happening in the halls and why what was happening is happening. The good things. The meeting I attended, it started with a fun icebreaker. We did the human knot and we got out of it. Everyone who participated got to, or everyone who attended got to participate. So we got out of it in like 5 minutes. Right after that, the RA proposed, 2 RAs came to the meeting and proposed an idea to RHA to partner with a big old dance that they plan on creating. So RHA has a bunch of money and they're like, you could fund a little bit of this. They're like, that'd be great. And so then they asked us to create they asked RHA to create a little planning community with about 3 people to meet with the RAs every few weeks. After that, they put final touches on a glow in the dark minute to win it event. So what they need to do is figure out who was running each part of the event and how they were going to give out prizes. And then the financial advisor spoke about budget, and they were like, we have a lot of money this term, and then next term is going to be even more. So the next few events we can do, we can really spend big and awesome. Last thing they spoke about in the meeting was trying to get outreach out to the students so they're better understood. Leadership, the president runs the meeting, creates agendas, and leader of RHA. Then they have an area coordinator of Doherty Hall, and that person, she just has better connections and understands how to get things done, so she assists the group. Leadership style is delegating, like the president really trusts all the members to get their work done. And democratic leader, all officers were voted on by the residents in the halls. And then the way they make their decisions is also very democratic, where they raise their hand and vote for whatever they do. What I learned in this presentation was delegating leadership can be a very good thing, especially when you have members that are have very specific expertises and many things. So, and you can trust them to get their job done. So the president says, who wants to do this task? And someone will already say, I got it. And they're good at planning. But planning ahead of time for meetings is a good thing. Like this meeting was very well thought out and planned and just ran very smoothly with the agenda. And then running and facilitating the meeting, everyone got to speak. The president just kind of rolled through it all. And yeah, and I think that was it.
Thanks, Eli. I think it's really interesting to hear some some of the ways you were reporting on RHA and its meetings. I really like some of the things you learned from this process, right? The way that they allow for delegation, putting out tasks. Sometimes you think about delegation as, oh, I don't want to do the work. I can have other people do it. But in cases like this, right, it really helps to divide and conquer and stuff like. I like the way you were mentioning the icebreakers, the goals, sort of way that the group structured is sort of kind of facilitate that. I'm curious too, did you get a sense from the voting? Like, is it like a simple majority vote? Like, do you have any idea about like
Well,
that?
All the votes they did was unanimous, like they
Okay.
pretty much all just agreed, but I asked them, they're like, yeah, it's majority, so it's not like if there's like 5 versus 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
The 5 always.
That's interesting because, right, like in cases like that, you'll have a lot of organizations and groups where, you know, people don't like conflict, they don't like having to do the election process, but they do like the idea that there's this, oh yeah, we'll put this person in as an officer. They're easily able to do that. So it's interesting that some groups will avoid conflict by just kind of unanimously choosing to nominate or not having like full running. Like we use kind of nonverbal cues to indicate who should or should not be vying for a position, time it is, and that sort of thing. Interesting dynamic of a small group that we didn't get to this much, but really great work. Awesome job in getting us thinking about some of the ways that small groups communicate. So we'll now have Elena. Oh, I see. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull up the download folder so that. Or. All right, you should be good to go. So whenever you're ready.
All right, hi guys, I am Elena and this is my small group observation. So like when I decided to do the Agripreneur Club here at YU. So this club is a fairly new club that started this year and they focus on looking at agriculture through an entrepreneurship lens. And they also give opportunities for students to network, build relationships, and leadership skills, as well as providing volunteer and scholarship options. I decided to do this club because I was curious to see how a new club that started during the pandemic is doing and if they have been successful. So the meeting took place in Zabel Hall 204. There were about 6 to 8 members present, 4 of which were club officers. The meeting started on time at 6 p.m. and was about 45 minutes long. At the front of the room on the whiteboard, they had an agenda up with the points: coffee hour, social media, speakers, recruiting, promotional ideas, club logo, and spring meetings. The presidents would introduce each point to the group with a little bit of background information, and then allow the group to have a discussion to make a decision on the topic. Some of the leadership and organizational styles that I noticed during this meeting was brainstorming, leader as a conductor, and democratic leadership. First, brainstorming. This was used whenever talking about an agenda point. For example, when they were discussing potential speakers, the advisor asked if anyone knew of anybody in the community that would be willing to come to speak. And after a few minutes of talking with each other, they had a list of a couple names that people knew of and could get in contact with. Another example of this was when they were talking about what everyone should bring to coffee hour, and they used that time to brainstorm good options for food. So second is leader as conductor. I noticed this when the group was trying to make a decision, either one of the presidents or the advisor would jump in and help them come up with a way to reach the goal if they were stuck. And lastly, I noticed democratic leadership because the advisor gave the president's topics for the group to discuss. So the advisor knew what needed to be done and what needed to be discussed when he had the group come up with the decisions on their own. So the structure of this meeting I felt was laid back, unstressful, and welcoming. all of the officers have taken time to look over the agenda points and offered some background information to other members when it was needed. When the club was going through the agenda, they would make unofficially assigned jobs to certain officers. For example, when they were going over what the club logo should look like, Eva, who I believe is the secretary of the club, started to make one on Canva. So they decided it would be best for her to continue to work on the logo. Another example of this was when they asked one of the officers to come up with the club's first Instagram post. They unofficially assigned her the job. At the end of the meeting, the advisor asked everyone if they had any questions or if there was anything they wanted to discuss that wasn't previously done. Some of the other concepts I noticed during this observation was that in some small group situations, it's better to have multiple people in charge at the meeting rather than one person. It's also important to value everyone's opinions, no matter if they're an officer or just a member. I also learned that communication is important, and it's important to openly talk about where communication went wrong and what can be done to help it be better in the future. And lastly, I saw that voting is not needed for a group to make a decision, but having a discussion that comes to a general consistent also works. So overall, small groups take time to form both explicit and implicit norms, as well as figuring out what leadership and organizational skills work best for the group.
Awesome. Thank you, Elena. I really like the way you had that explicit connection of the terms and concepts, things you've been going over. Brainstorming, leaders and vector, forms of democratic leadership. I like you're talking about the sort of norms in the group, describing it as like a chill and comfortable place for people to talk about. And I also like the way you talk about democratic leadership, just think that it's sort of preventing one person from being in charge and calling the shots, right? When we talk about issues such as groupthink, letting one person dominate the discussion, right? Democratic leadership is a great way to ensure we have those checks and balances in place where people can participate, but also hold people accountable and also comfortable to openly share their perspectives. So really good job. I wasn't familiar with the Agripreneur Club, but that sounds like a really interesting organization. Great opportunity for you to explore. So awesome job. Great. I think we have everybody that was scheduled for today that is here. So anybody that's missing? Yeah. So Destiny.
I sent it on the actual group presentation.
Yeah. I remember you were letting me know that you might not be able to make it for today, so that's why I have you on the original list. But you are able to be here and present.
I don't think that was me.
Okay,
I don't think I emailed you saying that.
let me double check.
Okay.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I had a student who was not able to present today, but was originally scheduled for today. Which is very accidentally put you off of the list. So I'm sorry about that. I will hold that up and we have plenty of time to have you present as well. Sorry about that, Destiny.
No, you're fine.
And then I think we have it, right?
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
My folder.
Yeah, you want to
Okay.
hold it or click it or whatever you need to do to scroll.
Cool.
So yeah, whenever you're ready, we can start with that.
I guess I should have sent it differently. That's fine. Okay. So my club that I chose to observe is the art club. Oh, I don't know.
So if you zoom in, then it'll keep you from having to scroll down as much for the slides, or like it'll make it so that you can just have one on the screen.
Oh no, how did I do that?
So, no worries. So there's a couple options here. So here's what I would recommend. So what I would recommend is zooming it in like this. I'll also go hide the stuff. And then what I would recommend is you can use the scroll here or the arrows just to go down. Arrows or, yeah, so I'd use the scroll here.
You can also bring it to your form, so.
Oh, that's.
Yeah, that works too.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, that would help a lot.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna restart. Okay,
No worries.
so my name's
everything.
Destiny, and the group that I chose to observe is the art club. Okay, so this meeting that took place on, well, it takes place on Fridays. This meeting was a little informal. Because it was kind of an event that they were hosting, and it was called wheel throwing, and that's the advertisement that they set out. They met in LoSo, specifically room 111, and then it was from 3 to 5, which was pretty long, but it's obviously because they're hosting an event. And it was open basically to everyone. I know when I spoke with the one of the officers, she mentioned that there's only 4 real members of the group, and 3 are officers, so essentially there's like 1 real member. And he isn't an art major or anything, he kind of just took it up this last year, and so I thought that was very interesting. And then the reason why I chose the art club was just because I'm not a very creative person, and I've never been, so I thought it'd be really interesting to kind of see what goes on in this club. So some more meeting details. Like I said, it was a little informal. They were making clay bowls on a pottery reel. And they were planning to utilize them for an event that they're gonna host, I believe, maybe this week. And it's gonna be kind of a date night painting activity, and people are gonna be able to come paint the bowls. And so as far as leadership styles, definitely one that stood out to me and that was obvious was selling. Specifically for this event, because there was a lot of new people, and so they've never done this before. And so the leaders were providing guidance and kind of showing everybody how to do it. And something that I found that was very interesting was that these leaders in this specific club, they were in a way emergent leaders. They kind of took it up by themselves. I know over COVID, everything kind of messed up everything, and so our club was in the thing for a little bit, and they kind of restarted it, and so that really stood out to me. It's just them basically doing that. And so participation amongst the members this time around was just making the bowls, and kind of following along, making sure that they were doing their best, to make the best bowls that they could. And then the style of management that I said that this group has is autocratic. I would have said democratic, but there's only 4 real members and 3 are officers, so there's not really much members that have a say. It's kind of the officers have the most say. And then I believe that specifically this event that they were hosting, they were leader as conductors, because the common goal that everybody was trying to achieve that came along was to make bowls. And so some takeaways, I kind of reflected on my past things that we learned. One thing was definitely that there's a difference amongst different groups in the way that they kind of delegate and function. The only kind of group meetings I ever went to was like work meetings, and so this was definitely different from that. And so, like I mentioned before, there's only real 1 full member of the group. And so I know that they had mentioned that they had a lot of people interested at the beginning of the year at the club fair, and then that interest kind of shifted away as classes started, and so they never really got to the forming stage. It kind of makes me sad for the art club, because it did seem like a really fun environment to be in. And so then it kind of got me questioning about the uncertainty theory, and maybe that people just, didn't really know much about clubs. I know that I tried to participate in a club and it kind of failed because I was just uncertain. And so communication overall in this group is great. The officers are really the only people that communicate. And so they're doing a great job. They agree for the most part. I asked them if they had any problems and they said no. So that's pretty much it.
Dustin, again, sorry about that. Looks like it was really. So really good job in describing, I think kind of the reset that a lot of clubs or organizations have to do in relation to COVID, right? I think the way you described the very small membership and the effort to try to recruit new people was interesting. I think you have that, as you mentioned, autocratic leadership style when you do not have a whole lot of people participating and able to function within the group. So I thought that that was a really interesting observation. And then I really liked the way that you discussed some of the ways that, you know, as somebody who's not in the group, you might feel some uncertainty or not the same amount of comfort with participation. So really good job there. Really excellent round of presentations. Do another round of applause for everybody who bravely shared the work today. Really exciting stuff, a really strong start to our presentation. So as a reminder, go ahead and either pass forward or email me the observations that you have regarding the two in-class presentations that you showed. If you're still working on them, you can email them to me a little bit later. I'll also have the recording up for you to access that after class. Have a great rest of your morning. Really great job for those of you starting out. And we will do the next round of presentations for Wednesday.